Well, namaste, everyone, and welcome to Expanding Consciousness. I am Kira, and this is a very special update type of episode. I haven't done anything like this before, but I've really been called, given the events that are happening right now. And I'm actually recording this episode in January. However, at the time of the airing of this episode, I'm going to be deep in Southeast Asia, where I have been called and where magical, miraculous circumstances opened up for me to be in the countries of Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos between January and early February. Now, I'm going to be returning to Denver in the United States in early February, and that's when I'm going to be coming back to you again with more episodes of Expanding Consciousness. And this is also why that I felt it was extremely important to put this episode in right now. And so where are we? What is the state of consciousness at this moment in our evolutionary history and our emergence through the fields of potentiality that exist right here? Where are we? Where is humanity collectively? Where are we going? What are we doing? Does any of this make sense? I know those questions are in front of you. And if you have not watched my January, and they were actually the 2026 and January predictions, they're right here at this YouTube channel. Please go watch them. Because as we are moving into our universal new alchemy, remember, this is a universal new alchemy. There is no avoiding this. Everyone is moving into this alchemy. We are at that moment. The transitionary experience is here. And so the state of our consciousness is the reflection of the state of the world. Now, that's a big thing to say, isn't it? I mean, what does that really mean? So let me we are living in an age of emergence. And we are living in an age of emergence. We are living at the time where the alchemies are shifting. Now, this isn't anything that's really too dramatically new, because even in our limited availability to gaze at history, what we are aware of is that we have seen these shifts before. I mean, something as physical as the extinction of the dinosaurs, or when a meteor has hit the planet, or other global events that have shown us dramatic shifts that affect consciousness. And, most recently, if we were to really look into this field of potentiality, I would say let's reflect back at the 1900s and really pay attention to the period right after World War II. Because the period right after World War II was a birth in consciousness. It was a birth in availability. Prior to that, remember that we're going back to 1945 at the end of World War II, but prior to that, during the 1880s, up to and including the late 1930s, there was a huge spiritual renaissance. There was an opportunity where people were growing, where there was a rise in the interest of that beyond dogma, where an understanding of our mystical nature was being revealed. This was the time of the I Am books. This was the times of Alice Bailey. There was so much that was happening during this time. And during this time, as we were evolving, as our conscious awareness was expanding, remember that we, as a species, humanity, these brains, these bodies of flesh, this hair, right? We can only receive a frequency of conscious awareness that is supported on this planet so that this body does not need to leave the planet to sustain. Okay, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that if you read about any of the great masters, if you read about people that have evolved, or you look at how their conscious awareness has grown, many of them get to a certain point where they need to meditate beyond this field to sustain the higher levels of consciousness, to sustain those frequencies of consciousness. And many of the embodied masters that have been on this planet could only go so far on their journey in this body of form. And this is what has been the greatest blessing of the rise in conscious awareness. So as we have grown through that field, as we have moved forward, as this planet, the Schumann resonance, right? All of these frequencies have grown. When we look at the 1900s and we see the springboard from when we were at the end of World War II, where there was a great rise in optimism, where the world was happy, where people had felt that peace was going to be permanent, where there was a baby boom all over the world, not just in the United States, there was a moment of emergence. And it was very much a mini, I'm going to call it a mini moment. And the reason it's a mini moment is because here we are, we're in these cycles. So remember, we go through these 100-year cycles. And right now on this planet, something that happened in 2026 that has not happened before is that the seed of creation itself has opened and revealed the two seeds within. You can call it the yin, the yang, the masculine, the feminine. It matters not. But those two seeds that that are in within this one seed have birthed, and from them, as if they were the base of a flower, this beautiful trinity, this beautiful energy has risen up from that. So you have the seed of creation, and then you have this trinity energy that has risen, which gives us the what? The eternal life 5. I am eternal life, as are you. You are a living Ankh. Remember in Egyptology, the Ankh is eternal life. Well, you are that 5-pointed star. You are that eternal life. And just as a side note, get to my website, IAmKira.net. Look under the self-ascension practices and learn the living Ankh. It's free. It's on my website. It will empower you. So getting back to those 100-year cycles. Right now, those 5 seeds of creation have ignited into 5. And each one of them represents a 100-year cycle, and they're all spinning around you. So if we gaze at the 100-year cycle that began roughly in 1945 through 2045, what we're seeing once again, and this was something that I personally experienced, was when we entered into this millennium, when we entered into the year 2000 and beyond. And this was right when the archangelic realm stepped forward and invited Shri and I to come out into the public realm and start offering this information. And what happened at the millennium, and those of you that were here remember, everybody was storing water and we were going to have all these hiccups and oh my God, what was going to happen? And yes, there was a great moment that happened at the millennium. That was the release of the karmic imperative. What does that mean? And at the time that this was first revealed, I remember getting lots of interesting email around this. Well, let me describe what that means, because it's part of this cycle. Because when the millennium hit, when the release of the karmic imperative came off, what it gave us was where we are at right now. It gave us the opportunity to actually embrace our eternal nature and arrive into a state of conscious awareness beyond where we have ever gone before. Okay, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that self-awareness has evolved beyond that, which is simply, wow, there's more than just me. Self-awareness has arrived at a moment where you have the freedom, the capacity, and the ability to witness yourself, witnessing a witnesser of self. What does that mean? Well, let me give you an example. One of my favorite examples. Remember Get Smart? Remember that first one? I mean, I'm a child of the 60s. I remember the original, all right? And so the cones of silence, right? So imagine right now that you are able to sit in the cone of silence, and that inside of that cone of silence, you are aware of your eternal nature. There is only peace. You are outside of the fields of self-sabotage, of fear, doubt, and hesitancy, and you are in the moment of your divine being. Really, really feel that. And so in that moment of divine being, I want you to gaze. Remember, the cones of silence are glass, right? So I want you to gaze outside those cones of silence, and what do you see? You can see everything, your entire life, everything that's happening. You can see that which is trying to pull you, the information, the misinformation, the AI, the conspiracy, all of it. And sitting in the cone of silence, you remember you are the commander of it. You remember that you have the capacity to stop it, to pay attention to it. And so consciousness has arisen in this moment now, as we are now here in the year 2026 when I am recording this. It doesn't matter when you get this. This is timeless information about our rise in consciousness. But what has happened is that you are now capable of sustaining a frequency that can hold that level of conscious awareness while sustaining this body of form. That's a lot to say, and that's really powerful, and I hope you feel the power of that, because this is why we are here. Part of our evolutionary process, remember the perennial philosophies, and if you don't, please go into the archives of this show, Expanding Consciousness, and learn about the perennial philosophies. And so as we look at the perennial philosophies, as we are moving through in this moment now, what's happening is that if indeed the purpose of life is to remember our divine nature while carrying this body of form, then we have all graduated. Because we are at the moment now where, because the planet has been evolving and because what happened was a repeat. So in the 1900s, remember, in the early 1900s through the late 30s, there was this huge spiritual renaissance. Well, as I started mentioning earlier, in the early 2000s, after you had that release of the Karmic Imperative, there was another huge rise, another huge spiritual up level where we had so many things that were happening. We were expanding upon things that had happened. We were moving through astrological events and events that were very specific to this potentiality to ignite and open the pyramid of spiritual awakening. The Ave Sa energy came back to the planet after it had been basically placed in dormancy during the 1900s by Helena Blavatsky and the Ascended Masters, who made this gift for humanity go dormant during the 1900s out of concern about the manipulation of the energy. It was only after the freedom of the Karmic Imperative in the year 2000 that consciousness was given its ability to rise again. And I'm really glad you're hanging with me. I'm really glad you're watching right now. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, because if you're here right now, your consciousness is evolving. Whether you think you're fully understanding this or not is irrelevant, because believe me, you are. You are. For 26 years, this has been my life. And what I can share with you is that in witnessing and watching the rise of our field of conscious awareness, this is how we reverse age. This is how we reform our body. This is how we grow an entire new head of hair at age 60. And so this is important. And what's important is for you to remember that the cone of silence is your safe space, that everyone has this. That ability to stand in the center. Remember, this is the template of consciousness itself. Our conscious awareness has risen. We have evolved in this moment because of these new alchemies. Where are we? Where are we collectively? We are at a moment where we are able to instantaneously manifest. And I mean instantaneously manifest. So if the law of instantaneous manifestation has now arisen back on the planet, and it has, and I've been teaching this now for over 10 years, the law of instantaneous manifestation is only able to be sustained when we stand in the field of conscious awareness. And this is why the law of attraction works so well, no matter what your level of consciousness, because the law of attraction is based on magnetic frequencies in this field of potentiality. And learning how to work with all those magnetic frequencies is training. It's kindergarten for consciousness. And we've been moving through this kindergarten for consciousness for a while. The greatest power of being in this now is the recognition that you are able to be in many nows. And again, the best training ever, right? We had this spiritual renaissance in the early 2000s that birthed all of these extraordinary educational tools. So many different ones came forward. My own books that I put out during that time, Sacred Union, The Journey Home, still in print. 2012, You Have a Choice, Working with Atlantean Revelations, all of these books. And I was one among others And so as those people, as this information has been out on the planet, once again, what is being buried, what is being seen? Yet, all of it is in the planetary thought body. So let's talk about that, because where are we now? We exist, you exist through the sacred sequence of incarnation. You exist in a field of creation. Figure that out, remember that, right? Through the sacred sequence of incarnation. If you don't know what that is, go watch my show on that, right? Just type it in. So through the sacred sequence of incarnation, you exist in this field right now through the perennial philosophies to remember who you are while you are in this body of form, knowing that you do not have to die to ascend, knowing that you have the capacity to bring this in. And that is what the yoga of self-ascension is. The yoga of self-ascension is the recognition that as you lift and shift with your conscious awareness, you are the master who is able to command the body, work with the emotions, handle the mental, see the spiritual, and constantly come back to the divine center. You are the divine center. You are that field of creation. You are that energy. And in that knowing, where is consciousness? What is the state of consciousness right now? We have arrived at the moment collectively where we are able to be in what I call informed. Got it? I am in this form. So informed awareness means that the body is able to accept, and that's really the energy, acceptance, that the body is able to accept that the highest aspect of self is here. And in that acceptance, we open up the fields of trust and love. Here's trust and here's love. Trust and love. And in the acceptance of the fields of trust and love, consciousness has arrived. So in the energy of trust and love comes our ability to be, our ability to manifest. And I invite you to bring your hands to your heart right now, because I'm taking off to what I feel complete a journey that I began last February in Canada, when I was first called to leave Ecuador for the first time in many years and go up to the wilds of Canada to be in an incredible off-grid community, to learn about beekeeping, to be one with the beavers, to get a tick bite and understand what that's about, to really be in that essence. And it was to go up and remember that ice freezes us, but that in the frozen north, there was this hot south. And that's why I came up from South America, that when we put a flame under the ice, the block begins to move. It might still be a block, but at least it's shifting its position. And so we first began last year with looking at positionality and how that ice, that fire and ice were moving together. And then I was called to Eastern Europe. And my time in Latvia, Lithuania, and walking through and dealing with Ukrainians and being there on the anniversary of the Ukrainian war was a very powerful moment of remembrance, that we have this fire and ice, but we also have this east and west. It's this balance. It's the cross of perfect balance. And then returning again and being called out among all these different countries and energies, culminating now with Asia, really bringing it all together, bringing together this energy of the four directions, this energy of perfect balance. As I had put out in my predictions for 2025 and also put out in my predictions for 2026, all of which you can find at my website, IAmKira.net, we are at a moment where we are at the risk of losing who we are. We are at a moment of confusion. We are at a moment of giving away our power. We are at a moment of enslavement into that power. I invite you to offer yourself a moment right now, as I am wandering jungles of most likely Laos or Cambodia while this is airing. I want you to feel into your own heart right now, to feel into the perfect balance that is yours to claim, to notice where your consciousness is and to say yes to consciousness, I want you to make a note to return and make sure you stay with me. Please get to my website, IAmKira.net. Register for my e-card to get all of the updates. Follow this channel. There will be small things coming in from Asia, but I honestly have no idea. I cannot promise anything other than what I know is that the universe has said I must take this journey and opened up the miracle for it to happen. You are a miracle. The state of consciousness is ever emerging within and through you. Together we are where we have never been before, and we are at a precarious moment for humanity. It is what we collectively choose to do that matters. And I have put all that I am, my resources, my body, my emotions, my mental, my spiritual, my consciousness itself, I have put everything out there because I am saying yes. And I know you are too. And I love you. Drop me a note, write to me, comment on this video, share it with your friends, because where we are in consciousness matters, and it is our time. Many blessings, and I love you.